In the lead up to the Autocar Awards, we always have a series of discussions and dialogues with those that are a very integral part of the automobile industry. Who better to give us insights than the dealers, the interface between consumers and the manufacturers. Welcome to Autocar Dialogues, presented by Reliance General Insurance in partnership with Times Network. We have a very eminent panel of dealers with us here today, and I'd like to introduce them. We have Mr. Rajesh Shah from Bhavna Ford. He's the director of Bhavna Ford in Mumbai. Mr. Arun Surendra, Managing Director, VST Group, Bangalore. Mr. Rakesh Ranjan, Managing Director, Leader, Automotive, Patna. And Mr. Hemant Chopra, Managing Director, Chopra Group in Nashik. Welcome, gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. But the topic we're talking about today is the COVID impact. It has been a terrible year for most people, a very difficult time. None of us would have imagined that we would have to shut the doors to business one day completely and finally. It must have been an awful, awful time. I mean, what were your first thoughts when the lockdown happened?
This is something that we can't expect that these things to be happen, but when this happens, we think that let it go. Whatever happens, let it be faced after a few months, that what happens to us. And after a few months, things are not in the right way, because we are actually a very heavy overhead of the salary, of interest, of rents, and then we think that this business is over and we are in a very big soup. I don't know how much we can get out of that and how much we can how quickly we can get out of that. So that's a very big mess at that time of April, May.
Yeah. Was that the same feeling for all of you? I mean, was that fear and apprehension? What am I going to do?
I think the first couple of weeks was uncertainty. But I think the real concern was sort of end of April, early May, because when you looked at what's happening around the world, it was only worst news following the worst news, right? So as you said earlier, we had overheads, rentals, manpower, etc., and stocks. If this continued for 3 months or 6 months, I mean, the whole industry was upside down. So there was definitely a bit of concern, 4 weeks into it, to say, hey, this is not looking pretty. In hindsight, obviously, it's different, but there was a lot of concern. I think we must divide that into two sort of phases, right? One is your personal concern from a business. How do we cut costs? How do I exit showrooms? How do I lay off people? One side of it. And the other side of it is you've got hundreds of staff that you're going to lay off at the worst possible time in their life. How do you say that? I mean, how do you make that call? You can look at it philosophically, right? I mean, you can take a hit for so long, but you can't take a hit so bad that it takes you down. So there's definitely a bit of fear, panic, optimism on some fronts. So
I think probably what he has suggested, definitely it was once in a century event. No, we never had ever expected that such time will come. We entire world, with almost entire India, had got stopped and everybody had closed their business establishment. But I think probably I would like to add one thing here, that the misery was much more higher for automobile sector, because it was coupled with shifting of BS4 to BS6. So dealers were already struggling for last 3 to 4 months, I think, possibly for getting their stock cleared for that reason. And not only that, I think probably automobile industry was in distress right from 2017. After demonetization, then there was GST, then government reforms about load axles reform was there. Then after again, government policy has come for GST and all those. That completely, or even increase in the premium of insurance was one particular thing that have given negative impacts. Liquidity crunch was there with NBFCs. So there was a series of already hindrance was in the market for automobile dealer, especially, I say.
What really, Mr. Chopra, I'll throw this to you. What really was the COVID impact for you in that sense? Challenging time always throws new learnings.
Right.
So what was the impact? What has it taught you?
COVID basically taught us that come what may, we can get back on our feet. The main thing was maintaining hygienes after the showroom started. Everyone was scared, so getting that scare out and getting the people back to your showrooms was one of the most important thing. Taking care of the employees in those 4 months was critical. For example, we at Nashik, being a tier 3 city I represent over here, we distributed food and everything for the first 4 months. So every employee was given food from us and taken care, because these were the worst times. And if you take care of your employees at the right time, they would come back with better results, while it is a humanitarian thing which you had to do at that moment of time. I remember 6 months were terrible. By September, we started doing well, and in the next 4 months, we literally pulled back 50% of what went wrong.
All dealers have had to make their operations leaner. Cost cutting was a very big impact of COVID. You have to learn to work tighter. Some have even told me we had to go back to what we used to do in 2016, what our cost structure in 2016 was, we're facing it now. So was that a big part, and how did you approach it? I mean, how did you change your cost structure? Because like I'm hearing, you still maintained people, you still have the showroom. So where did that change?
I don't think so that we can actually having a major cost cutting in our dealership, because our dealership is running on 3 pillars: interest, salary and rents. You can cut down a salary of one level, till one level. You can cut down the top manager salary, you can cut down some of the bigger salary players, but it is not going to pay you off. It is not solve your all problems. Secondly, a rent. You cannot change the showroom by night. It is a long process. There is a branded retail, furnitures, everything is been built on that part. So I think that the cost cutting is give a big pressure to us that go for cost cutting, do cost cutting to save your business, save your life, but it is not a complete reality. We are having a great deal of workshop load. We are actually try for more cars in our workshop to get the money out of the workshop, because that is the only way we can actually having a liquidity turnaround. So we are working firstly toward workshop, because we are knowing that car selling is not a appropriate idea right now on the May month or the June month. June onward, people are taking deliveries, people are start taking cars at their home. So we are first targeted on the workshop front.
Yeah, and I guess people, having cars stationary for long, they also were worried. They wanted their cars serviced and turned around. So was that?
Definitely, service was one particular area where definitely because the vehicle were not available and sale has drastically gone down. So there was no option left with us but to go to service. And of course, vehicles were plying on the road. So service, definitely for service vehicles were coming to our workshop. We have further added, I think, probably few more things to that. Some value added services were there, which earlier was not given so much of importance. It has given us a learning that we must come out with a contingency plan for such type of situation, because it has happens once, it may happen after 10, 20 or 30 years, whatsoever may be. So dealerships must come out with a contingency plan to deal with such type of menace and such type of situations. And I think probably that is one point which we have discussed with our OEM also, that OEM and dealer both should come together and plan out, because OEM are also struggling a lot in their supply chain. They have to import, and semiconductors are not available, so they are also struggling a lot.
As any older company, you tend to accumulate a bit of fat on the sides, right? So I think COVID, because of the cost cutting, wanting to freeze salaries, wanting to lay off people, I think everyone, not just at the executive level but sort of going down, looked at costs more carefully to say, if we can save this, maybe the salary cuts will not be there. So always it's always at the CXO level that the profitability is thought about, and at the junior level stuff, and rightly so, they're not worried about the company's profit, they're worried about theirs. But I think this sort of conversation that started in COVID, and when you're talking of other companies getting laid off, IT companies, manufacturing, so I think a lot of the people in the organization looked at the company as theirs, because here, as an example from us, we didn't lay off as many, whereas other companies, other industries, layoffs are much higher. So there was a sense of ownership. Hey, wait a minute, I'm not getting laid off. What can I do? So I think, and I see it even now. I think the concern or the care for saving costs. It could be administrative costs. It could be just the extra couple of people that you want as a buffer in your organization. Every department head wants a couple more extra hands. So I think those things got taken off. But just to sort of add on the workshop side, June we had a surge in the workshop, right? But if you take June to now, your body shop is down 40%, because people are not driving as much. People are not going on holidays as much. Well, the taxis are not running around. So there is a longer term impact on our bottom line, because just transporting, people are still working from home. The overall miles on a car are not there. So I think there is my guess is another 12 months at least that it will affect us just from a revenue perspective.
But we're seeing this major buzz about industry bouncing back, and the automobile industry has come back like nobody else. And you know, I don't hear that same sense from dealerships, from people who are actually facing consumers and selling cars. All of you seem a little more somber and a little bit more restrained in the enthusiasm. Has it really come back? I mean, are we on a path to returning to normal? So many people are talking about people wanting personal mobility over shared. People are buying cars. Is that so? Is it true?
So one way you are right actually. People are actually want a car for his need. They may be not running their car so long, but they be require car for their needs, because Ola, Uber are not there right now in the market so heavily. Taxis are not available as and when required. But similar to this, the supply chain has been broken. Right now the parts are not coming from the OEMs very frequently. The car is not coming as and when required from the dealerships. We require some model or we require some quantity of the car, they are not giving, they are not ready to give. They says that it may take more 3 to 4 months to stabilize the supply. Semiconductor chip is not there, the container issue is there. So right now when we require a car for the mobilize of the people, we are not getting it.
Everywhere there's a buzz that the automotive industry is going high and seeing beautiful numbers, but that's not the point, because we're comparing it to the last year. Last year was a BS4, BS6 transition year. Already every manufacturer had gone down on numbers. So while you compare quarter to quarter, you would see someone increasing at 80% or a 90% jump, but that's not true. They are going good, but still not reached the 2017 numbers by any means.
Well, at this point, we'll take a short break right now, but it's interesting conversation here, and we will continue with the COVID impact right after this break. So we all see that the industry is now talking about this big buzz, the rise, products coming back into the market. What is your sense on this? Is it really true at dealership level? I mean, are we seeing consumers flooding and are sales really that high?
Definitely, if you go by the numbers, I think probably the numbers are definitely high. We have, if the wholesale market, you take the figures of wholesale market, it has again reached for PV vehicles 3,08,000, 3,10,000 figures every month we are selling. If you take the figure of January and February, I think probably 21. So number wise, definitely we are picking up. Sales market is going on, no doubt at all. But on what ground? Definitely the base which we are taking for 2020, that base was very little, it was less, and on that less base, if we are giving this number, I think probably that's not an achievement at all. That is my first point. And the second point, what I would like to add, that for last almost 3 to 4 years, automobile industry is struggling with different reasons so far, and the industry best was 17-18 year. Firstly, we have to reach to that number of 16-17 or 17-18 first of all, and we will have to surpass that. But even after, if we surpass that particular number, or if it reaches to that particular number, the agony or the suffering which the auto dealer has already experienced over last 3 and 4 years, the losses which they have incurred in different reasons, I think that is not going to compensate. So either you just go on adding 7 to 10% of increase of sale volume every year, and then you come down to the final figure, which I think probably will be in 22, 23 or 23, 24, wherever we may reach to that point. That will be in number game. We have surpassed, and we have definitely developed our market. We are at growth path.
What are really the challenges that you are facing? I mean, why? If the customers are coming into the showrooms, yes, there is supply chain problems, but what are the other issues that you're facing, and why is the recovery process so difficult?
See, what happened basically in COVID, the buying people, they were worried about their jobs, and this made the decision of buying a car little vulnerable. So they wanted a good mix. While they wanted a personal vehicle, they didn't want to go by public transport. They wanted to go with the private vehicle, but the cost benefit to it was never there to the public, and this has resulted in a situation where people are coming to the showrooms, looking at the cars, but still not going ahead with the bookings. As soon as this starts, once the COVID thing is out, that would increase the cycle a little better, and we see within the next 6 months this improving a lot better.
We've seen what the consumer has learned, the consumer shift, but what have dealerships learned out of this past year pandemic? What have been your major learnings from this?
As I say earlier also, that cost cutting is the one way that we have to learn for a longer period, that how we have to reduce our cost and run our showrooms efficiently and selling a good car. Second, what he says that the discounts in going down, and manufacturers are also understanding that they cannot push the cars to the dealership level. So these two things, if they go by 6 months or 1 year, this will be great benefit for us, and we are learning from it that the bigger showroom is not required right now. We are requiring a smaller showroom that we can afford of. We can tackle with any of the situation because COVID is not gone by. So we have to be ready for that thing.
See, I think the public often see the front end of us, the showroom and the workshops, but in all our organization, there's a huge back office and accounts and sort of operational administration stuff that works. We've been able to make ourselves more lean. Also, I think people have learned to not be a slave to their job. Because you are forced to work from home, you still have to file your taxes, you still have to make your insurance payments. A lot of work got done at home, Zoom calls or just off-campus working together. And in an Indian context, maybe in the IT industry, but in a traditional industry like us, there was never an option to work from home. It was always sort of be at your table at 9 o'clock, you got to punch out at 5:30. There's a very sort of old world view. I'm hoping, at least in our organization, try and take this forward. Give people the option. Certain jobs you can't do at home, fair enough, but certain things you can. A better work-life balance, possibly. I mean, there are research that says people are more efficient working at home. There's research that says that's not true either. I mean, that's to be proven. But I think some of these fundamental changes, I think, will happen, which is, you could work away from the office, and people also, I think, take on more responsibility during a moment of crisis. So I think there'll be lots of positives that will come out of this for sure.
To add to what he said, what positives have come, now dealers have become vigilant. Every rent agreement is going to be taken care of a COVID-like situation which happens, because the landlords have to understand that these conditions are there and they have to give a cut on that. So that's one thing which is now done on the rental side, where the showrooms are on rent. Secondly, on the employee side, the HR departments now takes care that the salaries are distributed between salary and incentive, So if a COVID-like situation again comes up, you are at least taken care in that sense, Otherwise it becomes very, very difficult and you have to cut down on people. So that should not happen.
Yes, definitely. I think probably what he is saying is right. As I told, that there should be a contingency plan all across the dealership as well as in company to deal with such type of situation. And one more learning, I think probably, which is very important, that digitalization. We always talk about digitalization, and that is one thing some people say that no, there is nothing like digitalization, touch and feel. Of course, touch and feel will be there, no doubt at all, I must say. But lockdown has given people amply of time, because they were sitting idle in the house. So go and become more tech friendly and more internet user. So that everybody has gone to internet, and now I am seeing at my dealership, and I think probably most of us have seen that now the customer is coming more aware about the product. They are well informed from their reference level, from their how many products they know, from coming down to the selection level, 2 or 3 brands. They do a lot of homework through internet, finally to reaching down to that particular point. And even sometimes some customers do come to our dealership who are knowing more than even our sales executives about the product, because they have made a complete study about the product and every features about it.
It's always, we've got to move forward. Everything changes, everything goes ahead. And it's great to have had you here. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's nice to end on a positive note that there have been learnings from a very, very difficult year. And as you see it, we've learned a lot. Tighter showrooms, work from home, digitization, different kind of consumer coming into the showroom, new ways forward and new learnings for dealers as well out of a very challenging year.